This is so much. I don't know what happened. I don't know. Hi my lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Amy and I am a cruelty-free makeup enthusiast and blogger. And in today's episode, we're going to be doing a palette ranking featuring recent palettes that I've tried in the past 2 months. The last time I did a video of this, it was 2 months ago, and I had done about 2 to 3 months worth of palettes that I had tried, did a ranking including micro reviews of each palette. And because I do show you hauls, I like to come back and let you know how I feel about the product, if it's worth it, if it's not worth it, or if I'm still trying to figure out stuff about it. So I tried a ton of palettes over the past 2 months. I honestly don't know how I got all these palettes. It's just insane to me. So I'm going to go over each and every one of them to you. I'm going to rank them from least favorite to most favorite, and we will go through together. Let's just jump right into this. My least favorite palette that I tried over the past couple of months, this is a holiday release. This is the Too Faced Foxy Neutrals palette, and I honestly should have known because this is a holiday palette from Too Faced. They're very inconsistent with their holiday releases. Sometimes they can be good, sometimes they're bad. Too Faced used to really go above and beyond for their Christmas packaging, like the Grand Chateau from several years ago, but now they've kind of gone into more of basic packaging. But I just thought that this was super cute because I love the fox on it, I love the jewels on it, and anything with a fox on it, I'm sold. And I really should have known going into it that the quality may not be as good as I expected it to be, and unfortunately that is true for this palette. It is neutral. I'm sorry, the back is shiny, so it kind of gives that glare, but you think that, you know what, it's a neutral palette, there's only one pressed glitter in there, this should be easy to use. It is not. It is very patchy, it's difficult to blend, and I found that it didn't last on my eyelids very long, and that was actually an issue years ago when I did have a lot of Too Faced makeup. The eyeshadow palettes, I find most Too Faced eyeshadows do not last on me. They're not long lasting, which is a big no-no for me. So for that reason, this is in the last spot. Coming in at number 16, it is the Too Faced Cinnamon Bear palette. And again, you will see I tried a bunch of holiday releases this year because I'm a sucker and I like cutesy things. This probably would have been a wonderful Valentine's Day release, and I do think the color story is quite beautiful. I love the little gummy cinnamon bears on there, and I do love the warm toned reddish shades in here and the blush. The problem is with the formulation of this palette. I found that, again, it was a little bit patchy. It didn't blend as well, and it wasn't very long lasting on me. The blush I actually have no problems with. I think the formulation is fine on there, but to be honest, I have so many other warm toned palettes that perform a lot better than this. The shimmers are quite nice, but again, the mattes are really lackluster, and that's the problem with this. So I can say without a doubt that this and the Foxy Neutrals I will be decluttering. I will put them on my Poshmark, which I will link down below in the description. One last thing I did want to touch about this is that a lot of people complained that this would be smelling too much cinnamon, or that it was infused with cinnamon and therefore it would burn your eyelids. That was not the case with this palette at all. It's very, very faintly scented to the point that I don't even really notice it. I have to get my nose really into the pigments, and there was no irritation that I found with the eye. The only problem is, again, the performance with this palette. At number 15, we have the Too Faced Unbearably Glam. This is the other holiday release that I thought was very cute because the polar bear, she has her little crown on there and the jewels. It's very pretty. This one actually wasn't as bad as the Foxy Neutrals or the Cinnamon Bear. This one is a bit more cool toned, and I do have to say that when I did play with this, I actually found some of these shades to work really well and be buildable. The center shade here, Boxes and Bows, is quite pretty. All I Want gave a really deep, more plummy look, especially to the outer V. I also have to say that the glitters in here were not that bad too. I did a few holiday looks with this just in my personal life, and a lot of people gave me compliments when I wore this palette. So I am going to hold on to this one. I just rate it so high up because I don't think it's as good quality as all the other palettes that I will be mentioning in this video. At number 14, we have the new KVD Edge of Reality eyeshadow palette. So this is a very interesting palette to me. There's only 6 mattes in this palette, and the rest of them are more shimmery type metallic topper shades. Now I really found this very interesting. I love the artwork on the front because there's this beautiful filigree. I'm very interested in seeing where this brand goes now that Kat Von D is no longer affiliated with the brand. I do feel that when I first saw this, my initial reaction was, this is nothing like the original brand, because you had that kind of gothy, dark, really creative, artsy kind of background. So while Kat Von D is a very controversial person, you cannot deny that she was a really, really great artist. So you're kind of missing that artistic eye, in a sense, from this new palette. However, when we look at the shades, performance-wise, it's very strange. I do not know how to feel about this palette. I've worn it about 6 times now, and I don't know if I like this palette or not, which is why it's not at the very end and it's not even in the middle of my eyeshadow palettes on this list. I find that the shimmers are so beautiful, and that's kind of the redeeming quality of this. The mattes take a lot of building up. They're not very pigmented. I do love the concept that this packaging is completely recyclable. I think that's very smart, and it's interesting too because I've never seen pigments put in pans in this way, and it may just be because it's a recycled packaging and I've just never seen it poured in. It almost looks like the pigments have been laser printed onto this palette. I would say the mattes are more mediocre and the shimmers are stellar. So I think there's this kind of dichotomy that you get within this palette. At number 12, we have the Glamlite Donut palette, which I just want to eat it. It's so squishy. I don't know what it is about this. I'm just like, nah, nah, nah. But like the KVD palette before, this is also a vegan palette. The packaging is absolutely adorable. It's a pink donut with little white icing on it and then little jewels across the top. So I did make a bigger purchase with Glamlite several months ago, and I tried out more of their palettes. I initially tried out their cake palette earlier this year, fell in love with it. It's one of my favorite palettes of the year, and so I wanted to try out more things from them. The reason why that this palette is not at the top of the list is because I do find that some of the shades in here is repetitive to the Ice Cream Dream palette and the cake palette. So this is a little bit more pastel leaning, but then there's this random red shade right here, which I don't quite really know what to do with it. I know you're supposed to deepen up the looks with it. I probably would have preferred maybe just a deeper purple or a deeper blue or even just a black. It's very strange to me that they chose this red shade, so I'm not really sure. I've used it before to deepen up the looks, and I wasn't too crazy with how that looked, but other than that, the other shades performed very well. Glamlite has a very well high-performing eyeshadow formula. The highlighter glazed is really beautiful. It gives a very glittery effect without being overly glittery, and it's very smooth upon application as well. So I do have to say I'm kind of in between with should I keep this palette or not, because I have the other sweeter palettes from this brand. I'm going to hold on to it for now just because the aesthetic of it, I'm in love with it. But just know that if you do plan on purchasing Glamlite, there are a lot of similarities with some of the palettes, so it just kind of depends on your preference as to whether you want something more curated or a bigger palette with more options. At number 11, we have Colourpop's Grandeur palette. This is a vegan palette that's part of their Dark Blooms collection. I love the aesthetic of this collection, the dark background with the florals on top. It's very much my aesthetic. I need to get some background with that kind of stuff, which it is coming, I promise. This is a gorgeous bronzy toned palette, and there are hints of cool tones in here as well, which I really like. I think that this is very neutral. It's very easy to wear. I like wearing this for work. The shade Need is really unique because it's a duochrome, and there's this kind of brown blue shift to it that I really like. And so this is just a really nice, well-performing palette. The reason why it's not closer to the top is because I do think it's a bit more of a simple, neutral color story, and it's not overly unique. At number 10, we have the Natasha Denona Peak palette. This was a palette exclusively to BoxyCharm over the past month. It's a very fun, warm-toned holiday palette. You only get 5 shades in here, but I found that the shades, especially the mattes, are super, super smooth. I did find that these are a little bit smoother than the Glam palette, and I really appreciated applying these shades. I thought they worked really well together. easy to blend, beautiful shimmer at the end as well. It's just a really nice, more curated palette that you don't have to think too much when you look at this. You're like, oh, I see the look, I can go to it. And if I want to go a bit warmer, I could use the orange. If I want to go a bit cooler, there's this more pinky kind of salmon-y shade here. And I really am impressed by it. I like that I got this in my box and that I didn't pay full price for something like this, because I do think that Natasha Denona is a bit overpriced for what you get. However, I was very pleased with this palette and I am happy to have it in my collection. We have another high-end palette coming in at number 9, and that is the Marc Jacobs Cherrific palette. So I was suckered into this because of the mint packaging and the cherry on top. It's a little kitschy, it's a little tacky, but in a really fun, fashionable way, and I really do like the colors in this. This is the first Marc Jacobs palette that I've ever purchased. I think it is quite beautiful, very easy to work with. It's got a nice blend of the neutrals and then the very pretty berry tones on the other side. I think the shimmers are great, particularly the shade Decadent. That is a really beautiful icy white shade in this palette, and it just blends really nicely. I've heard wonderful things about the Marc Jacobs formula, and I love that Marc Jacobs Beauty is cruelty-free. It's one of the few very larger designer brands that actually is. Do be mindful that Marc Jacobs fragrance is not cruelty-free because they're owned by 2 different companies, but this is really fun. I'm so happy I finally have a Marc Jacobs palette in my collection, and I can definitely see myself turning to this throughout the winter time. At number 8, we have a slightly larger palette and another one from Colourpop. This is the Stone Cold Fox palette, and on the inside you get an assortment of cooler toned shades. So you have rosy tones, you have more taupey tones, brown tones, gray tones, and then more of a mauvey tone. And I think it's a really, really well-versed palette. I liked the way that this applied. I thought it was very easy to work with. I like that the shades go from light to dark in their color story, which makes it very easy. If you're someone who's new to makeup or doesn't know much color theory, it's very easy to use these as an outline of how to do your look. I know that it's a lot and it's somewhat repetitive, but I do find that the metallics are really, really pretty smooth, typical Colourpop formula. And I just think the black in here is really nice. It's a deep, dark, matte black. It's something that's very dependable. And as we see that cooler tones are really making a comeback, and they're going to be really popular in 2021, if you're newer to makeup and don't have as large of a collection, I think this is a really great palette to have in your arsenal, because this has an assortment of shades and it's a quick, easy go-to. At number 7, we have a collab palette, and that is with Raw Beauty Kirsti with Colourpop, and it is the At Forst Sight palette. I think that this is such a dreamy woodland wonderland palette. I love this palette. I love the artwork on there with the beautiful mushrooms. I love the color story. Everything is matte except for 2 metallic shades, and they blend beautifully. The colors go so well together. You can take this from light to super dark. You can make this look really, really grungy. I have some looks up on my Instagram with this palette. I think you should go check it out at Compassionate Chic, and you can see what I've played with. I especially love the shade Fiddlehead, which, by the way, Fiddleheads are really delicious. If you've ever tried them, pop them in a salad. They're so good. But you have this balance of like kind of these greens, emerald green, the little bit of teal. I also love the shade Chanterelle, which is this dirty yellow up at the top. It's so beautiful and grungy, and the shimmers, Evergreen is a really, really stunning, unique greenish topper. The one shade that I'm not crazy about it is Let It Rain. That is the black with the kind of metallic sparkles in it. I find that unless you're packing this on your lid or you're swatching it, once you blend this black, it's just going to come up as black and you lose that shimmer. Colourpop has a lot of these mattes with the shimmers in them, and they always just blend away. I don't know why they do it. They look beautiful swatched, and I could see the appeal of them. They are quite pretty, but I don't know why they keep doing that. Because I am so drawn to these kind of earthy, grungy color stories, I realized that I have duped myself from ABH's Subculture to Aether's Joshua Tree palette, and then to the Flare palette by Ace Boutte. There's a lot of similar shades across the board with these palettes. I'm so happy to support Kirsti with this palette, but just be mindful that if you are on the lookout and you're not an avid makeup collector or enthusiast, to know that you may actually have a very similar palette in your collection already. At number 6, we have Colourpop's Ornate palette. This is the second palette in the Dark Blooms collection, and this is a really beautiful red gold palette. I love the shades in here. I found myself turning to this palette a lot, especially around Thanksgiving. I just think there's some really interesting orangey shades, the red tones. You have the mustard tone in there in the shade Siren. Again, another shade called Dream, which has the black and the little red flecks in it. That's very similar to that Let It Rain shade in the Raw Beauty Kirsti palette, funny enough. So this is really beautiful. The shade Gilded too gives that really beautiful brow bone highlighter. It's a really beautiful highlighter on its own on the skin too, just because it has that beautiful, almost reddish base to it. So this was a very enjoyable palette. Again, long-lasting, really trustworthy Colourpop formula. At number 5, we have Glamlite's The Pie Palette. This is another vegan palette as well. This is a beautiful, beautiful berry-toned palette. This came out in their Foodie Holiday box. I love that this is pie because pie is so much fun for the holidays. You have a beautiful blush in here, which is the Cherry Pie blush, very light, buildable cherry shade, and then all the other colors that inspired by different pies. You can go really bright and pink with mixed berry, or you can do a little bit more muted with the pumpkin shade. Glamlite has some of the most beautiful, buttery, easy to apply metallics on the market. I love this more curated color story from Glamlite, and you're not just getting a generic rainbow, which they tend to do with a lot of their palettes. So A+ for this. Love this one. At number 4, we have Colourpop's Baroque palette. And if it's not Baroque, then do not fix it. This is a beautifully dark, romantic palette that has shades of navy and gunmetal. And I love it because there aren't any glitters in here. There's just some really beautiful, smooth metallics like ritzy and noble. There's also a slightly gray tone in here with the shade BB and then Bougie as well, which is a little bit more of like a lighter, cloudy blue. And then you have the deeper shades at the bottom. When colors tend to do cool tones that are smoky, they tend to go more gray, black, or even taupe. So this is a very unique color scheme, and I just love it. I think it's so easy to apply. The beautiful shimmer and shine that's in this palette, I adore. And it's long lasting too. So A+ to this. This is my favorite palette out of the Dark Blooms collection. I'm going to really surprise you and myself with the palette that I put at number 3. That is the NYX Ultimate Utopia palette. Now this is a big palette. This has 40 shades, which is just ridiculous. But at the same time, this is one of the most interesting eyeshadow palettes I think I've ever seen from NYX. This is a really, really beautiful, dark, grungy color story, and I can see certain 9 pans in this as well. Almost when you kind of cover up certain shades, they almost look like Huda palettes when you see kind of 9 pans at a time together. But this is a beautiful palette. I've enjoyed using this so much during the fall. You have a great balance of more earthy kind of neutral shades and then also cooler tone shades. There's shades like periwinkle, teal, khaki, mustard, and then really, really pretty kind of metallic-y topper shades. I do have to say that this formula is very easy to work with. So those that are more afraid of color, the shades do apply lightly but build very easily. So the more saturated you want to go, you can definitely get there. I'm wearing this palette today. I used this kind of creamy shade here to set, and then I used this more peachy shade as my transition. I did the mustard shade a little bit on either side, and then this deep dark purple on either side to do more of a halo. And then in the center, I kind of cut it with a concealer. And then in the center, I used this beautiful kind of dirty greenish gold, which is very unique. So I really recommend this palette. So if you want something from the drugstore, this is a really wonderful palette, but don't pay full price. NYX is trying to do something. I don't know what they're doing. I'm like, who do you think you are, NYX, to charge $30 for this palette? That, I mean, again, think about this, right? This Glamlite palette cost a fraction of this palette when it came in the box, if you kind of do the numbers. And look at the packaging of this. It's beautiful. It's so customized. It has a theme, and right? There's this uniqueness to it, and they're not even charging as much as NYX is for this plastic cover, and the cover is scraped and scratched up. So for the price, I think the packaging could have been made a little bit nicer, but the color story is beautiful. Do not pay full price for this. Wait for this to go on sale. I actually got this for free because I used my Ulta Rewards points, but if you have points, use that, wait for a sale. but I do highly recommend this. And NYX is not a brand that I normally buy eyeshadows from. I've never been impressed by their eyeshadow formula, but this is definitely worth it. At number 2, you will probably not be surprised because it is a palette that I did a review, a tutorial, many looks on Instagram, and that is the Colourpop The Mandalorian palette. This is the Cild right here. I absolutely love the artwork of this palette. He is just so cute. We have a name for the Cild as well. His name is Grogu. They released the name in several episodes ago in The Mandalorian. This is a really unique green palette, and as you know, green is my favorite color. I just love that there's more minty shades. There's a little bit of like a dirty green in here. There's some silver, there's some gold, there's a brown, there's an icy shade in the corner that gives that super shock feel. I just think the color story is great. The shade names are great. I've used this a ton of times. It's one of my favorite Colourpop palettes of all time. I definitely will hold on to this probably till I die because I think it is just so, so cute. And if you want typical Colourpop formula, it's long lasting, easy to blend, easy to wear, this is the one. At number 1, we have a fun explosion of color, and that is the Glamlite Ice Cream Dream palette. This is beautiful. It is 30 shades, but it's actually not as big as you would think it is. It's kind of the size of my head. This came in a giant ice cream truck packaging. It's awesome. I saved it. I don't have it here right now, but if you go back into the haul that I did with Glamlite, you'll see this palette there. This palette is so much fun. The quality is chef's kiss. It is outstanding. If you have not tried Glamlite, you are totally missing out. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just think it's totally worth it. At the top, you have a little bit more deeper, richer, a little bit more on the neutral side, and then you have in the center all these gorgeous, gorgeous metallic topper shades, and at the bottom all of the pastels. These are so easy to work with. They are super creamy. The metallics are blinding and so unique with their formula. I love how diverse this palette is. You can do an assortment of so many different looks. You can use it throughout all 4 seasons. You can just tick an array of boxes with this palette because it satisfies so many cravings for so many different colors and looks. It's so versatile. I hope you enjoyed this ranking and micro review of all the palettes I've tried in the past 2 months. I am going to make it a goal in 2021 to not get that many palettes. Despite those 2 dud palettes that I will be decluttering, I do have to say that overall I'm very impressed with the quality and the performance of the other palettes. I do have to say that I have enjoyed using these. I will continue to enjoy using them. That is it for this video, my friends. I hope you enjoyed all of the fun palette talk. I know that I did. Before you leave, comment a little peach emoji because you are sweet as a peach. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that bell if you want to be notified anytime new content is posted here on my page. And until next time, remember to stay compassionate and chic. Bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye now.